From terror bombings to lifetime solitary, the journey of America's most feared convicts at ADX. Before we dive into this darkness, hit subscribe so you never miss another deep-cut dive into the world's most dangerous minds, if you dare. The sirens had already been echoing for 7 minutes when the first responders realized something was wrong, deeply wrong. The explosion site wasn't chaotic in the way bomb scenes usually were. This one was silent, eerily organized, as if whoever planted the device wanted the aftermath to feel like a message. The blackened remains of a delivery van smoldered at the center of a commercial district in Denver, its roof peeled upward like a steel flower. Nearby storefront windows were blown inward, scattering glass across the sidewalk like crystal shrapnel. But the absence of panicked crowds told investigators something far more chilling. The bomber had chosen the perfect moment when foot traffic was lowest, minimizing casualties. It wasn't mercy. It was strategy. Agent Elena Cross, a veteran in counter-terror operations, scanned the perimeter with a hardened gaze. She had responded to dozens of major incidents across the country, but this one felt off. The device had been expertly assembled, the detonation carefully timed, the materials almost impossible to trace. Whoever was behind it wasn't trying to rack up a body count. They were signaling their capability, demonstrating precision that instantly triggered alarms within federal agencies. As forensic technicians approached the charred van, something glinted beneath a twisted panel. Cross crouched down and brushed away the ash. A metal tag, small, square, and engraved with a single symbol. A circle with 2 intersecting lines. Her stomach tightened. That symbol had appeared before, buried in classified briefings, mentioned in intercepted communications, whispered about inside intelligence rooms where no phones or pens were allowed. It belonged to a radical splinter group suspected of orchestrating attacks across Western cities. A group known for vanishing before investigators even realized they were in the country. Cross keyed her radio. "We need Homeland Security on site. Now." Before backup arrived, she noticed something even more disturbing. The blast radius was smaller than expected for the materials used. That meant the bomber had intentionally limited the yield. This wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to warn. By nightfall, a second device was discovered, this one intact, outside a federal parking structure. Deactivated, its internal components were pristine. And inside, wired perfectly to avoid accidental detonation, was the same engraved metal tag. 2 devices. One exploded. One placed gently like a calling card. The following morning, as media outlets scrambled to piece together narratives, Cross gathered a task force for an emergency briefing. Every agent in the room knew what she was about to say, yet none wanted to be the first to acknowledge it. "It's them," she finally stated. "And they're escalating." Over the next 48 hours, surveillance teams tracked unusual movements across several states, rental cars abandoned near industrial areas, unregistered phones pinging cell towers for seconds at a time, encrypted chatter bouncing through foreign servers. A name surfaced repeatedly, a ghost in federal databases, Malik Razim, a suspected mastermind believed to coordinate operations from the shadows. He had never been caught, never been photographed, never left fingerprints. Until now. A fingerprint lifted from the unexploded device matched a partial latent print tied to a safe house raid years earlier. The room erupted when Cross revealed it. "We have him," an analyst whispered. "No," Cross corrected. "We have his mistake. And people like him don't make mistakes unless something bigger is coming." Hours later, a break arrived. A security camera outside a freight depot captured a figure loading crates into a truck, crates identical to the ones used to transport the bomb materials. The timestamp was 2 hours after the Denver explosion. The suspect's face was partially obscured, but the task force recognized the symbol sprayed onto the truck door in faint blue paint. Cross froze the frame. "Find this truck. Immediately." But when agents raided the depot and pried open a sealed storage unit, all they found was a single crate, sitting in the center of the room, untouched. Cross approached it cautiously. Inside was no bomb, no materials, no detonators. Just a folded piece of paper. She opened it slowly, and her face drained of color. "We're already inside." Agent Elena Cross had seen threats before, videos, coded messages, encrypted statements, but nothing rattled her like those 3 words on the folded note. We're already inside. Not a slogan. Not psychological warfare. A declaration. A promise. Someone had breached something, somewhere, and the clock had already started ticking. By the time she returned to headquarters, the building was vibrating with urgency. Analysts were cross-referencing every critical infrastructure node across multiple states. Power grids, transport hubs, federal buildings, communications networks, everything was under scrutiny. They searched for anomalies, breaches, changes that seemed too subtle to notice. At 3:14 p.m., they found one. A server at a mid-level federal archive center in Colorado showed a brief unauthorized access window lasting only 9 seconds. No files were downloaded. No systems were altered. But someone had entered, scrolled through restricted case folders, and disconnected without leaving a malware trace. "It's reconnaissance," Cross muttered. "They're mapping us." And then the video arrived. An unmarked envelope was dropped outside local media offices in Denver. Inside was a USB drive containing a 27-second clip. The footage was grainy, recorded in a dimly lit room with a single overhead bulb. A masked figure sat at a table, wearing a blue jacket with the same symbol etched into the left sleeve, the intersecting lines inside a circle. "Your fortress isn't sealed," the modulated voice said. "Your walls aren't high enough. You take our people. You bury them alive in Florence. We will unbury the truth." Florence. The Bureau of Prisons personnel froze. The message wasn't random. They were talking about ADX Florence, the federal supermax. The prison where America confined individuals behind the highest-profile domestic and international terror plots. Men serving lifetime solitary sentences. Men cut off from the world. Men that intelligence agencies had fought for years to silence. Cross turned to the director. "They're not threatening civilians. They're threatening the system that silenced their leaders." Within an hour, a sealed briefing brought together senior officials from multiple agencies. Dozens of sealed cases resurfaced, plots disrupted, cells dismantled, communication channels severed. Many of the individuals behind those operations were now entombed inside ADX, locked in soundproof cells with steel doors and fortified walls. "They want access," Cross said. "Not for an escape. For influence." "This can't get out," the director replied. "A coordinated threat tied to inmates at ADX opens every vulnerability we've spent decades trying to seal." Meanwhile, surveillance teams had finally located the truck from the freight depot. It was abandoned on a dirt road near Royal Gorge, its tires half buried in dust. The cargo? Empty. No crates. No fingerprints. No trace. But in the glove compartment, they found another metal tag, the symbol engraved in steel. Except this time, something new was scratched beneath it. 29 degrees 42 minutes 51.0 seconds north, 95 degrees 8 minutes 17.0 seconds west. Coordinates. Cross dropped the paper onto the desk, and analysts crowded around her monitor as she typed the numbers into the system. The map zoomed in. A federal courthouse. Houston. At the exact moment the coordinates appeared, alarms went off in the building. The Houston field office reported a bomb threat, unverified, unclaimed, but consistent with the splinter group's patterns. Police evacuated the area. Bomb squads swept the structure. Nothing was found. But something else was. A security guard reported seeing a man in a blue jacket leaving the underground parking area minutes before the threat call. He moved with purpose. Focused. And he left behind another folded note. "Check upstairs." Agents rushed into the courthouse records room, expecting explosives, accelerants, anything. Instead, they found a sealed box sitting in the center of the tile floor. One agent lifted the lid and froze. Inside was a full dossier, printed copies of classified files tied to inmates housed at ADX Florence. Files detailing their past operations, associates, and international networks. "These aren't stolen," an analyst said. "These are duplicates." Someone wanted the task force to see them, to revisit them, to question them. Cross felt something shift in the room. A discomfort she hadn't felt since her early years in counter-terror operations. "What are they doing?" an agent whispered. Cross stared at the box, every nerve tightening. "They're pushing us somewhere. And we're walking right into it." As she reached for the final file in the box, her hands stopped midair. The cover wasn't just a dossier. It was a photograph. A man in a dim hallway, blue jacket, holding a phone. And standing right behind him was someone Cross recognized. Someone she never expected to see connected to this case. And someone who was supposed to be dead. Agent Elena Cross stared at the photograph as if it might change if she blinked. The lighting was dim, the angle slightly tilted, but the second figure was unmistakable. The narrow jawline, the slight limp in the right leg, the faint scar under the left eye. She had seen that face years ago, once on a grainy surveillance tape and once on a cold slab after a failed raid overseas. Hassan Marek, a high-level coordinator believed to have overseen attacks across Europe. A man officially declared deceased. A man whose remains were supposedly buried in an unmarked grave after DNA identification. If he was alive, then everything she believed about this investigation, this network, this threat, was wrong. Her hands tightened around the edges of the photograph. This can't be real. But the room was silent, and in that silence sat the truth. Someone had lied about Hassan's death. Someone powerful enough to alter reports, forge documents, and seal cases. Someone who had a reason to keep him alive. Cross exhaled slowly. "We're dealing with a ghost who was never dead." The task force moved quickly. The dossier box was transferred to a forensic room, and analysts began combing through the files again. Patterns emerged. Communications thought to be from different cells now traced back to a single origin point. Multiple bomb threats across states shared nearly identical phrasing. And all of it pointed to a central figure coordinating operations with surgical precision. "They're not separate groups," Cross said, pacing. "It's one network. A single mastermind." "And if Marek is alive," the analyst began. "Then he never stopped," Cross finished. But a question lingered like a shadow no one wanted to acknowledge. If Marek was orchestrating this campaign of threats and symbolic attacks, why send clues? Why leave coordinates? Why expose themselves through carefully staged breadcrumbs? Before Cross could answer, an alert flashed across the command center wall, an emergency feed from ADX Florence. The warden's face appeared, pale and strained. "Agent Cross, we have a situation. Someone has remotely accessed our inmate monitoring system." Employees rushed behind him, attempting to shut down terminals. Video feeds flickered, cell doors, hallways, control pods. One camera glitched, then another. And then a live feed appeared on every screen in the command center. A dark hallway inside ADX Florence. Motionless. Silent. And a figure stepped into view. Blue jacket. Black mask. The same intersecting lines symbol on the arm. The masked figure looked directly into the camera. A voice distortion crackled through the speakers. "You bury them here. You silence them. But silence only creates shadows. And shadows have their own language." "Shut it down," the warden shouted from the feed. But the hacker had already locked every control system. The video remained. The masked figure stepped aside, revealing what was behind him, another person. Shackled. Blindfolded. Kneeling. An ADX staff member. A hostage. Cross felt her pulse spike. This wasn't just symbolic. This was operational. The masked figure held up a small placard. "Cell Block C, Room 17. The room belonging to an inmate once believed fully isolated from the outside world. A man serving a lifetime sentence for coordinating plots on U.S. soil. A man who was supposedly cut off from communication forever. Malik Razim. They're trying to break him out," an agent whispered. Cross shook her head. "No, they're trying to let him speak." The video glitch flickered again. And suddenly, a new figure stepped into frame. Unmasked. Standing tall. Hassan Marek. Alive. He reached down, removed the blindfold from the hostage, and stared into the camera. "This began with a lie," he said. "And all lies lead back to Florence." Static burst through the feed. The screen went black. Silence filled the room. And then Cross's phone vibrated. A single message. No number. No trace. You want the truth? Come alone. Coordinates attached. They led to a desolate service road behind ADX Florence. Cross didn't wait. Within minutes she was behind the wheel, racing through the Colorado night. Gravel crunched under her tires as she pulled up to the location. A lone figure stood by the fence, barely visible in the moonlight. Not Marek. Not Razim. But a federal official she had trusted for years. Someone with high-level clearance. Someone with access to sealed files. Someone who signed off on Marek's death. His voice was calm. You weren't supposed to see the photograph. Cross stepped closer, dread twisting inside her. Why hide him? His eyes shifted toward the prison in the distance. Because the truth about Florence is bigger than the inmates inside it. And Marek, she asked. He exhaled. He never escaped us. We used him. The realization hit like a blow. This wasn't a terror network trying to infiltrate ADX. This was a government operation gone wrong. And the ghosts weren't on the outside. They were inside the system. Before Cross could speak, a distant explosion shook the ground. Lights across ADX flickered. Sirens blared. The official didn't flinch. And now, Agent Cross, everyone will learn the truth. She spun toward the prison. Smoke rose. The lights died. And somewhere inside ADX Florence, doors were unlocking. The end. If you want a follow-up story, a sequel investigation, or character expansion, just tell me.